All right, guys. One of the most infamous lolz episodes featured our guest today. It is, of course, James, aka Chess is Okay. Last time he was here, he was tossing grenades, Molotov cocktails all around the DFS space. We had a great time and thought, you know what? We need to bring him back, see what he's been up to, see what other hot takes he's been cooking up. Let's do it. It's James. Chess is Okay on lolz.
Does he think? I think he thinks this. He thinks this is a go. Vegas Dave thinks this is a go.
Hot naked girls doing yoga.
What?
Why don't you just win like a man?
Random.org. Type in 1 for yes, 2 for no, and let the DFS cats pick for you.
And I'm absolutely begging you not to dupe us. Please don't dupe us.
James, did you have you observed how your 80-hour comment that you made last time you were on lolz has become a bit of a meme in the DFS space since then?
No, tell me more.
Well, ever since I think we were just talking about like your average week when you were grinding DFS all the time, and you had a comment that you spent about 80 hours a week, kind of like on your process. I think you were talking about NBA specifically. And I don't know if other grinders found that to be like an absurd amount of time relative to how much they put in. But now everyone is always referencing, like, are you putting in your 80 hours a week? It's kind of like our Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours. It's you need your 80
just
hours
80
a week
though?
Just to be good.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably right. Like, if you're working 7 days a week, like noon to midnight, it really adds up. So,
yeah. But you haven't been playing now, though, for a while, right?
No. The last time I played DFS professionally was Super Bowl 2021. So it's been over 2 years.
Okay. You say professionally, though, because I want to say I've seen references to people saying they'll see you pop up in a lobby every now and again.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't play very much at all, though. Like, basically, I'm a kind of all or nothing kind of person. And unless I am putting in 80 hours a week, let's say, I'd rather sit out. I kind of devote myself all into the thing that I'm doing at the moment, and that happens to be investing in software business and venture capital right now. But I mean, being a professional gambler was 8 wonderful years of my life, and I mean, I'm the person I am today because of poker and fantasy sports. So, yeah, happy to talk about either.
So Pete, I think the majority of people. Like the DFS shows and stuff, James, that are everywhere on all the different channels and stuff. I think the consensus was 80 was a lot, and they
Too
were
much.
That's what they were saying.
Better if you put in less.
I think they were kind of saying they didn't believe you, or you're exaggerating. I'm pretty sure that was the general theme going why everyone was referencing it so much, Pete.
They shouldn't. They can ask my wife.
Well,
no, honestly, I had a daughter during COVID, and that was a big impetus for moving on because, I mean, the hours are just, it's really tough to have a family and not get any sleep and be raising an infant or a toddler. You need reliable hours, like you need to do daycare pickup during crunch time, those kind of things. And so it's like not totally amenable to being like, no one could talk to me from 5 to 7 o'clock. Like I need to be available for late swap. That's like the most important thing, like it just doesn't work as well when you have a toddler knocking on your door being like, what you doing, Dad?
Yeah, it certainly changes the calculus. What are the hours? How many hours are you putting in on your new endeavors with Gutter and the venture capital stuff?
Wait, Pete, do you have a kid?
I just had a kid. Yeah, she turned 12 weeks today.
Congrats. And so how do you do with your 80 hours now?
Yeah, I mean, it is I'm not putting in 80 hours. I continue to play DFS casually. I've always played DFS casually. But no, to your point, like your schedule does change, your priorities change. You're trying to find these pockets of time where you can get stuff done. So yeah, things have definitely changed for me.
Yeah, I mean, no, understandably so. Generally, I mean, I'm a routine man. I do the same thing every day. So when it comes to venture, like I'm generally in the office at 7:30 in the morning, and I generally leave around 6 or something like that. And I do that 5 days a week, and I try to be good about taking weekends off, but I often end up working during nap time, which is like noon to 2 or 3. So Yeah, you have the flexibility when there's no lock and you don't have to have your bets in at a certain time to take care of other responsibilities.
What years did you play poker?
I played poker like 2013, 14, 15.
Oh.
And there was a little overlap between that and fantasy, but basically, like, there came a point where I was up, like, in one half of NBA season, I made like 6 times of what I made in the previous like entire year of playing poker. And so it didn't last long until it was obvious that it was time to move on from poker.
Those are some rough years of poker, 2013, 14, 15.
But
not why you want to go professional, those specific years. Marcos has a good question here. Last time you were here, you mentioned you did coaching.
Yes, I did do some coaching.
You still doing it?
Not as much anymore. I worked with, I mean, it's pretty rewarding. I worked with 20 people. Most of them were quite good and really used the advice that I gave them well. And I loved getting messages from people when they were shipping large GPPs, and I could see who's in second and third, and they were some of my biggest competitors back in the day. But no, that's fun. But I do admittedly like less of that now. One reason is because it was 2 years ago that I was playing, so I think that I have less to say about strategy today. But for a lot of people who are like solid winners in DFS but looking to take it to the next level, I think that just talking to me for an hour could have like saved them a ton of time.
How much of obviously you're doing other stuff, you're not playing regularly, but do you have your finger on the pulse at all? Like when MMA, they get rid of late swap or bring in late swap and then get rid of it. Like, are those news items that are coming your way? Or are you just completely in your own bunker right now?
You guys can bet on MMA.
It was a huge thing because there was a vocal minority who was sick of the late scratches. And so DraftKings like capitulated and was like, fine, we'll add late swap for MMA. Then their tech and their rollout for it was a disaster. And then they rolled it back to late swap fairly recently.
Well, I just think that when you add late swap to any structure, basically, it's going to severely benefit the best players, and that even though it's the kind of thing that recreational players might say they want, I think that it's going to make them go broke a lot faster. And honestly, it's hard to late swap by hand. And I think that anyone who late swaps by hand is lying if they tell you that they're good at late swap.
Okay.
They could do it if they're playing like 2 lineups.
I stand by what I said.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Well, I think it's possible
I think that anyone who sits 1 or 2 high stakes contests and late swaps by hand is probably a loser in that game. But what do I know? I'm out of the game.
Yeah, I don't think there's many people doing it, but I think you could if you really know what's going on, paying attention. One lineup, I think you could pull it off, but it doesn't matter. I agree. Late swap is like for people who not only are good, but you got to stay there all night. Like you got to, because you got to do it after every lock. So like tonight, for example, there's 4 games. Central time it's 6, 6:30, 7:30, right? And there's only 4 games.
I remember what it's like, and you're playing rosters on all of those.
Right. Yeah. And so like you want to look at it at each locks. I mean, it's annoying as hell. MMA was not a good sport to implement late swap, in my opinion. Because the start times aren't really set. Because like if a guy gets knocked out in the first, that kind of changes things, and they get like pushed back, and some fights can like go. The timing can get screwed up. So they started locking it 2 fights later. So like even though the fights haven't gone, so it was all screwed up. They rolled it out, James. The rollout was so bad. Like they let the ownership of the late players. They showed it early by accident. And it's like, but you could late swap, but everyone now knows the ownership. And then they're
like a FanDuel employee.
Exactly, yeah. And then what was the other one? They let you swap a fight that already started. And so like they could, like if a guy knocks somebody out, you could like really quickly swap them in, and then they canceled all the people who did that. And then there was like one more mistake, and it was just a lot of social media pushback, and they rolled it back. Thank God. And then last week, Pete, I don't know if you saw, the main event was scratched post-lock. Yes. As soon as they brought it back.
It's Great.
Yeah, I guess that's a tough one to handle, because my instinct is that like everyone's playing the same kind of environment. So like you shouldn't cancel the contest because everyone is kind of in the same boat there. But like in terms of experience for non-regular players, like it's just a horrible experience. Like those are people who are probably never going to come back to the platform, if it's their first time playing and something like that happens.
I almost think
it's like they have to cancel it. Sorry, Pete, that for like legal reasons. I doubt you can,
because they were going to get sued.
No, I think it's just probably something you can't like let people wager on an event. Like when you say I think the DFS rules it's a certain lock start time, and if you announce it pre-lock that's what the players are agreeing to do, something like that. I could be wrong, but that's kind of good. Sorry, Pete, I cut you off.
Oh no, I was just saying to James's point about being like a bad user experience, it's probably even worse when it's like not a main card, right? Because most people who are just like casually tossing lineups in, they want to have fighters from the main card. And if that fight is off, then their night's already ruined already. It's more like if they have a 0 in their lineup from earlier in the night and then they head into the main card and they're just like, I'm already drawing dead because I took a 0 that I couldn't late swap. I'm guessing that's what tilts people even more.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So do you find yourself ever missing it, trying to scratch that itch, or do you still casually watch sports, or was your relationship with sports just exclusively through DFS?
I miss it a little bit. Basically being an investor, things happen very slowly and then even more slowly than that. And I do miss the urgency of having rosters set. The fact that you need to get your work done for that day, you make the decisions and then you move on to the next ones. I really like that cadence. So there is something about that I miss, the competitiveness as well. But yeah, when you're an investor, it takes 5 years plus for things to play out. And then you don't even get clear signal about whether you made good decisions or not. And in the same way in DFS, how the variance is confusing and tricky, and it's why the game exists. That's also why investing is a fantastic opportunity, because it's legitimately difficult to figure out which way is up.
That's interesting. Tell people who aren't familiar kind of what you're doing with Gutter, what is your specific role? And I can screen share here a little bit of your guys' website.
Yeah, no, thank you. I run a venture fund called Gutter Capital. We're a $25 million fund focused on investing in early stage software businesses. We lead pre-seed and seed stage rounds. Basically, we think that big businesses are built in response to great challenges, some of the biggest problems we face in society. That's how you find yourself in large and growing markets with customers who have newly allocated budgets, who are willing to pay to have these problems solved for them. And that's where you have new kind of software solutions that are built tailor-made to correct them. So basically how I got into it and made the transition, when I started hitting it big in fantasy sports, so basically my partner, Dan, started this company called Managed by Q, which was a commercial cleaning business and services marketplace here in New York. I wrote some of the first software for them, the optimization for where all the cleaners would go. But he started building a reputation as an exceptional operator. He would get cold inbound from founders looking for mentorship, and he was barely paying himself a salary at the time. So we started investing my gambling winnings, writing small checks into pre-seed and seed stage companies. We called ourselves Gutter Capital because when we invested, we were consistently the smallest check into the rounds we invested in. And this was a little bit before AngelList took off. It was a little bit before, there was still angel investing, but it wasn't at the scale it was today. So it was often a lead firm putting in over $1 million and then us putting in 25K that were the participants in the round. And as we started doing more and more for our founders, it started feeling less and less good passing off those deals to the top venture funds. The partners there tend to be really sharp and good, but they were going to sit down in the first couple of board meetings to kind of figure out all of the things that we already knew to be true. So it was really that realization, our founder references, our track record, because we started investing and we did about 100 deals over 5 years. And then, that gave us the track record to go out and raise this fund, where we continued to do what we've been doing all along, except now we lead rounds and take about 1.5 million total position size, and really go to work for our founders, providing deep operational support and focusing on placing key people as the best way to move the needle for the companies we invest in.
How do you get started? Like, how much paperwork do you have to do? I imagine there's some hoops you got to jump through. You can't just, Pete can't just start a fund after this show, can we?
You could. It's not that hard. Like, basically, when we got it started investing, I mean, you need to know founders, you need to know people starting companies, and they need to want to give you allocation in the rounds that they're raising. And so, I mean, I guess securing allocation is when you're starting out the hard part, because no one knows who you are or like what you're going to do for them, or you have no track record. So like, why are they going to work with you? But yeah, after you do that for a while, you start building a reputation in the references, and then people start saying like, oh, like I have a lot of investors and they were the only ones who did things for me, like that. When you start getting those kind of references, it becomes easier and easier. But yeah, I mean, I got a letter from my accountant signed saying that I was an accredited investor, and I started just wiring money, and that's how I got started.
Okay. I figured there'd be some sort of regulatory filing you'd have to do, some sort of fiduciary responsibility or something. But I guess if you're giving them the money, it's really just your gamble. The accredited investor is not that hard to get.
It's not that hard to get.
I mean, what is the threshold for it now?
It's like $200,000, I think. Maybe 250.
I think if you're making if it's a certain income, or it's like, I think $1 million in net assets or something like that.
Yeah. If you have a bunch of that, like million, I think that's right. Like $250,000 and $1 million net, I think was the last time I looked. Who knows what it is?
Something like that. I mean, to start a fund and manage money for other people, there's certainly more paperwork to do that, and drawing up the legal docs can cost you anywhere from like $50,000 to $100,000. But to get started, I mean, it doesn't take much.
Have you ever seen these state-operated local angel investment marketplaces? I'm not sure if they popped up. Oh, I used to work at the treasurer's office. We were working on one, because there is this problem of the accreditor invest, and everyone has to be an accredited investor to invest in these early stage companies. And, why can't a guy who makes $70,000, put $500 into some company? It's illegal currently. And so through the state, they were going to make this marketplace of businesses looking to get small seed funding from regular people. And I think Indiana, this is years ago, right? I haven't had a job for a long time, so I'm assuming they're probably out.
Congrats, Brian.
Although I don't know why I'm putting my faith in them getting it up, but it should be up by now. And I don't know. I figured that'd be something that somebody like you might be interested in.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of adverse selection to those kind of marketplaces because, I mean, if we're leading a round, we're pretty selective about who we're going to recommend that the founders take in the round with us. And if a company starts opening up the investment to the public, that might mean that they're not able to fill the round with like insiders or people who know what's going on. So like, yeah, it kind of sucks that you limit to an accredited investor, and like people who have $1 million are, I don't think on average any more savvy than people who don't. It's not a good criteria, but it is a pretty predatory space where like a lot of the things that are available for individuals to invest in are probably things that they shouldn't, or like you wouldn't want to. Right.
And that was the treasurer's job, as being the responsible party for overseeing who gets the list on the marketplace. That's great. By the way, like they don't know what the fuck they're doing either. So it's all a clusterfuck. But yeah, I just thought you just jogged my memory with this angel investing. How about
oh, we lost Brian.
Oh, Brian's clipping for a sec here, Brian.
Oh, am I? You guys are fine. Am I back? Or am I still clipping?
You're back. I think you're back.
Yeah, you guys were fine that whole time. How about
just before we move on, I have seen cases where there's a company that's like failed to raise money from institutional venture who's like opened it up to the public, and it's like kind of gross. I mean, it's actually like pretty common, and I mean, it's not good.
when you say that you are, as an investor, like helping out these companies that you're investing in, like what are the kind of things you're doing for them? Obviously, like strategic investors is a very, standardized concept, but I'm curious, like the specific things you guys offer to these companies.
So we focus on hiring key people as the best way to move the needle for a company. Basically, like at the earliest stages, like the difference between having a great CT, like a great head of technology, and a mediocre one is the difference between like having a monster outcome and going out of business. And so that's what we set ourselves to do. Our first hire, now operating partner, is this guy, Richard Hughes, who ran recruitment at my partner Dan's company. He recruited the whole senior team there, and he's a really exceptional recruiter. In the past year, he's helped fill over half of the headcount in our portfolio companies, which is like almost 50 positions. That includes multiple co-founders. That includes multiple CTOs. Like, a lot of venture funds say that they only invest in technical founders, and I could talk a lot about that, but we actually prefer founders who have deep industry experience and insights, because we think we can solve for technical talent fairly easily. I mean, not easily, but like we can find great CTOs for you and set ourselves in a couple of months to put 10 great candidates in front of a founder. And I mean, for me, like someone, as you guys probably are, like thinking about how I'm going to beat the game, like how we're going to see opportunities that other people aren't seeing, how we're going to get better prices than other people, how we're going to do more or better change the trajectory of our businesses. Like, I mean, we're talking about, I don't know, it's the quality of the people we're placing into our companies. It's just like a whole different ball game.
So how do you, not to like question your own personal Rolodex, but where are you finding these people? Are you the one like scouring like LinkedIn to find people who are qualified? How are you doing that?
Well, that's Richard Hughes' job. He's fantastic at it.
Okay, that's your partner?
Yeah, well, that's our third partner who we brought on, Richard Hughes, who's an operating partner.
Okay, gotcha.
That sounds painful.
It does.
He's great at it. I mean, when he's filling a role, he's sending like 100 cold emails a day. It is a volume game. But no, he's great. And like, honestly, a lot of it starts at the grassroots, where like we work with the founders to have a professional organization that people would want to work for, where you clearly communicate like what we're doing here, so people can go home and tell their spouse or tell their parents like this is a real thing and why I want to work there. And once you do that, like the rest of it becomes easy. Like I think where people run into problems with hiring is often in the communication step, where it's like not well communicated like why this is a really attractive thing to work for.
So it sounds like for you guys, I mean, I have to assume just in general, a lot of this investment funding is very competitive. And so you guys stand out because you have now like the snowball effect of referrals of saying like, hey, these guys have actually really helped us out. They're going to do more than just writing a check. Is that how you guys have kind of inched your way into a lot of these?
Yeah, compounded over time. I mean, when we started in 2017, I think we did 4 deals. We got pretty lucky that year because one of them went out of business and 3 of them became unicorns. And so we thought, hey, this is easy. And we basically started doubling the amount that we were doing every year. And we were consistently showing up and doing a great deal for our founders. Often the smallest checks in the rounds we invested in, but one of the most engaged investors, sometimes doing more than the people who were leading the round. And my partner sold his company to WeWork in 2019, and he went full time. And so, yeah, it's just the compounding effect of doing that year after year. It's just more and more people who are like, hey, these guys are legit.
Interesting.
What do you think about the All In Pod, JCal, the Syndicate? Do you care about any of that stuff?
What do you mean specifically?
I don't know. I know you like talking shit, so I want you to talk shit about JCal.
The All In podcast?
Or sure. Or maybe you like it or you don't watch it.
Well,
it's the most popular venture capitalist podcast in the world, right?
You could call them like the venture capitalist cabal, right? Like the stuff runs, they dictate a lot of stuff. There was the clip. What was the thing? Was it Solana or something? One of them where they were like openly talking about dumping their coins and kind of laughing about it.
It's pretty gross. And a lot of those guys have pretty average returns, but you wouldn't know it listening to the way they talk about what they do.
How do you know that they don't have great returns?
Well, a lot of this stuff is tracked and you can see their decks and things like that. So it's pretty easy in this industry. Like I could talk, I mean, venture is just like such an incredible opportunity. Like, honestly, it gives me the same feeling when I deposited the first $1,000 I deposited on FanDuel and I realized I needed to stop everything else I was doing and only do this. The way people talked about DFS back then, it was just like there were so many common misconceptions that people just repeated. One of them, like a guy's injured, don't touch it. You know, there was just so much basic stuff that people got wrong. And like literally when I got into venture, people are saying things like price doesn't matter. You know, it's 1 or 0, either it's a home run or it's not. So if it's a home run, you need to have invested as much as you could. Like all of this results oriented stuff. And like you take an industry where the average fund, the median fund, returned almost 20% lifetime since the 70s. Like take every fund, take the median fund, it's almost 20% after fees. And a lot of these funds took very significant fees. So like, I mean, it gave me that feeling where it's like, wow, I really need to figure this out and figure out how to value these companies and figure out how to get really good at this, because it's like it's like the moneymaker poker again, you know, which is the same feeling I got in DFS. But I could talk more, a little bit more about venture history too, if you guys are interested. I mean, I just live, eat, and breathe this stuff. So
good.
Anyway, there are a lot of people who have a winner or two, have a decent fund. Basically, like institutional investors are comparing you to the S&P mostly, and like I just talked about, like the median fund is beating that handedly. So like almost everyone's happy in the ecosystem, and like some fund managers just go to bed being like, oh, I'm a genius, and then they make podcasts and talk about how much of a genius they are when they're really just like you know, literally the 50th of 100 funds that year. But
what well, one thing I always, when I hear those kind of like prolific venture capitalists, or even like the fucking guys on Shark Tank, right, where they're just doing all of these deals, it seems like every single one of those, if you are rolling up your sleeves and actually helping them, talk about 80 hours a week. I mean, the amount of time that's putting on your plate to like foster that relationship in that company. Like, how do you think about that, of like chasing the new thrill of the next investment, knowing like a ton of work is going to come with each individual one of those funds?
Yeah, I mean, so that's something that's like ridiculous about Shark Tank on its face. Like, I mean, they're like, it's impossible for them to do anything for you if they're doing like 5 deals that day, you know? Like, we plan to do about 10 investments a year, and when we're making a commitment to a founder, like we're talking about 5. I mean, we generally take board seats when we invest. We're likely to be on those boards for like 5 to 7 years, you know? So like we're talking about relationships that are going to outlast the average marriage. It's not something like we walk into lightly. So yeah, I mean, on its face, it's the pitches that, like, for instance, on Shark Tank, when they're like, oh, we're going to do so much for you. I'm going to like, I'll handle your distribution. I have like the right networks for you. Don't worry. I'll make all the intros for you. Like I'll handle it from here. It's like, it's literally impossible. Like they're full of crap.
Yeah. Because especially if your guys' specific selling point is like, hey, we're going to work closely with you. We're going to help you, find the right people. I mean, yeah. I go to your company page right now of all the funds you guys have invested in. Like, are you working closely with all of these companies on a regular basis?
Yeah. So Fund Zero is the angel portfolio. So those are just some select ones from the 100 we did. In Fund One, we're on the boards of these companies. We work closely with them. In many cases, we've helped them find co-founders or key people in the organization. Like I mentioned last year, like I think there were 80 open roles in our portfolio, and we helped to fill 50 of them. So yeah, I mean, on the left side, we're doing a lot with these companies. And for the ones I'm on the board of, basically my partner and I have like a clear delegation for what we do. He basically runs the support organization and I run the investing organization. So he does about 80% of the work when it comes to supporting the companies. And I do about 80% of the work when it comes to making the investment decisions and diligence and all of that. And so I'm on the board of 3 of these companies, but for those companies, I'm talking to the founders every day, you know?
Interesting.
Is that DD, Pete? Remember that? Randone, DD? Due diligence, wasn't that a bit for a while? Sorry, go ahead.
You just don't use the hashtag because it's a League of Legends team there. How how much, like what sectors are you most interested in? Like when the stuff you guys are investing in, is there a specific industry or type of thing where you think there's like huge growth potential right now?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them. We focus on software businesses because that's what generally has the most appealing unit economics and margins. But basically, we're looking for solutions to big problems that society faces. Generally, we think that fits into 3 buckets, which is like the affordability crisis, sustainability, or economic mobility. And so we tend to focus on companies that have like a software or high margin solution that addresses one of those things. Some of the areas that we've invested a lot in include like companies that help increase the quantity of housing in this country, because of the affordability around housing is like at the level of a national catastrophe. Basically, we haven't built enough housing since the global financial crisis, and it's most acute at the bottom end of the market where the economics don't make sense for the enterprise home builders to build. So, I mean, basically, I think that the largest company by market cap in the world can be built that properly addresses that problem. And I think we funded 4 companies that are taking a crack at a solution to the housing crisis, and hopefully we funded one of them.
Nice.
Speaking of syndicates, like the JCal, everyone can invest in it. There's kind of a DFS version. I was just thinking with the stake website. The name is, I'm drawing a blank. I know it's got stake.
Stake Kings.
Stake Kings.
Stake Kings. I don't know if he's still on there, but I'm assuming he is. Like almost all his action, Brandon Adams is on there. He won the Millie last night in the NBA.
Wow, congrats to him.
Well, I closed the app early, but like he had it locked, so I'm assuming he won. So whoever made an angel investment into Brandon Adams, you probably got a nice return last night.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a lot of adverse selection in that. Obviously, I think that Brandon, I don't honestly know. I mean, he played this hand against Phil Hellmuth on Poker After Dark. That was a big inspiration to me. I mean, he was an incredible gambler in his time, so like I wouldn't be surprised if he's still a winner.
I think I remember that hand you talked about. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
The lineup he played, I did not think was very good, but what do I know? What do I know? Well, there was a late injury question mark, and he picked Jackson Hayes, who ended up not starting, and then didn't swap off of him, but got lucky, and he like 8-10x or something. Like it's like the kind of like a guy who didn't even pay attention to his phone move. And like he had like 6 super low owned guys in a pretty small tournament.
I think Chipotle Addict did that at a live final with Solomon Hill when everyone else had like Dante Cunningham or something like that. But
and the way the schedule worked out too, I don't think you can argue that it was like an ownership play either, because the guy who did start wasn't going to be that high owned because it was the only one late game and every other lineup was locked or full. So like, but whatever.
Maybe I don't know. It seems like these guys have a wide range.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, and like the other players that he picked that were in that lineup too were a lot of long shots.
You think the projection was too weak on this roster, or what?
Yeah, probably overall. And he might not even switch the guy. Like he might not even late swap.
What do you think is his motivation for doing Stake Kings? Because Brandon Adams, very successful dude, also an investor, academic, all those things. I don't think he's hurting for cash. I don't think he necessarily needs the Stake Kings affiliate money. Why do you think he does it?
He probably owns part of the company, I would bet, but maybe he doesn't. And guaranteed whatever he charges, I'm pretty sure they give him a sweetheart deal, and so he doesn't pay them that much, if anything, because they want to use his name to give legitimacy to the site. So he's probably making 15% on every dollar bought into his portfolio, which guaranteed every night is pretty sweet. But I mean, you figure if he's rich, that's a lot of work. He might not even be entering his lineups. I don't want to like make an accusation.
He might just do it for marketing.
He might just have somebody else entering those lineups.
Well, that's a big accusation, isn't it?
I mean, I have no idea. But like, I'm trying to like, if he's rich, like, why does he care? I don't know. Those are all possible motivations. I have
Not
no
everyone's
evidence.
motivated by money.
I don't care who he has under his lineups, honestly. But
what would you say for you, James, are like the most applicable skills, whether technical or just things you've learned from playing DFS, playing poker, that you now apply to investing?
I mean, it's so similar in so many ways, where basically I would say the skill in DFS comes down to projecting players' performance in sports, having some idea for what your opponents are going to do, and then knowing what the best rosters are going to play, knowing what the best rosters are to play given those two factors. And like, investing is exactly the same, just replace player performance with company performance, and you've got the exact same thing. So like, I set myself to really understand companies and who their customers are and what the customers' need are and like what that market is going to look like. And yeah, then the rest of it is finding yourself in like less competitive situations where you get to dictate terms, where you're not fighting over a lot of funds and have to pay up for things that are frankly like just as likely to succeed as other businesses you're seeing, and knowing what to do given all of those factors.
What's the equivalent for you? Like, would people talk about getting a sweat in DFS? Like, what is the sweat for you in investment?
There's no sweat. There's no sweat
at all.
There's no
Zero.
sweat. And I mean, I think if you're, I mean, in private markets, there's no sweat because things happen so slowly. In public markets, things also happen so slowly. But I think that if you're actually sweating, you're just getting distracted because like, I think the best public markets investors aren't glued to their screen looking at what happens like day to day or minute to minute, but including traders.
So you're telling me like you guys write a $1.5 million check to these companies and you're not checking their monthly or their quarterly revenue reports and be like, oh, this is going well, or oh God, this looks bad. There's no sweat there.
Well, that there is some excitement to that, but it's also like if things are going bad, it's like, how do we fix it? You know, and if things are going
so you
well,
are checking.
like how can, yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, you look at basically we have board meetings quarterly generally, and you're like, you're getting all of the financials and you're going over everything and you're thinking about how can we help.
Pete just gave a great that. Now I'm intrigued. I'm like, oh, that's a sweat. I could deal with that sweat. Like, yeah, give it to me every week, actually, you know, like, oh, fine, we're due.
And you're getting distracted if you're looking at things every week.
Every day, just like DFS.
Like a lot of times, like we have a company that's selling software to floodplain managers at municipalities called Forerunner. It's one of the biggest positions in the fund, a truly exceptional business. Union Square Ventures just led the Series A, and they're a wonderful partner, so we're lucky to have them involved as well and joining the board. But like, you know, the sales cycles there, like you're not really going to get a good understanding of the business looking at what happens week to week or month to month. They were written into the Florida state budget, you know, like that doesn't happen overnight. And that's pretty common when it comes to dealing with government buyers, when it comes to dealing with enterprise buyers, the kind of buyers who are writing you like business changing checks. Generally, like week to week, you're not really going to know where you're at.
Do you ever like recommend new employees and then call it like a late swap? Like, we need Bob from account late swap.
For sure. Well, I mean, like if there's a problem in the organization, I mean, like, oftentimes the thing that happens early stage is like a lot of times at the company. So a lot of the times you have a company where they get their first customers where like everyone was working for nothing and the employees were kind of like whoever was around. And it turns out that those aren't always the right people to build the business for the long term. So like when there's a problem, it's often like pretty obvious. It's like, oh, this one part of the organization keeps holding us back or keeps underperforming. But like, yeah, there is definitely like, you know, switching people out, bringing in new people, that kind of thing.
What because like one thing I always overhear, with like investing stuff. And I mean, even with the DraftKings stock, right? Like people were really upset with how much that plummeted, and companies are constantly thinking once you take money, like you have to scale and be returning money or value back to those original investors. Have you had any of your investments where you've been, dare I say, on tilt or upset of like, hey, they're not doing enough for us, the investors, after all we did for them? Have you had any of those dynamics?
I'm fortunate to not have those dynamics. I mean, we have really close relationships with the founders, and we almost exclusively have successful engagements with our founders. Generally, like, I wouldn't underestimate it's kind of a wonderful thing about this business is that people tend to surprise you to the upside. Like, we're talking about people who are generally pretty smart, generally have a lot of opportunities, leave a good paying job to start a company. Like, generally it's something they believe in very deeply and are like mission driven to solve a problem. And like, I wouldn't underestimate those people when their back's up against the wall, like it's kind of amazing what people are able to accomplish.
So no sweats, no tilt. What's going on, James? I thought you had
boring.
a little DFS in you still.
It is boring. It is boring. It's slow. It's not boring. Yeah. It's slow.
So for you, DFS was never about that high of, chasing that adrenaline that kind of comes with sweating DFS?
I tried to not watch. I tried to not sweat. I mean, sometimes I did. It's hard not to, but I think to play my best, I tried to like focus, zoom everything out, filter everything out, and just like focus on the next day. And then like after things set, like I had sweats to win $1 million where I was literally asleep for it. Like I didn't know till the next day. Like I got second in a Millie Maker, didn't know it till the next day. I mean, those things because it's like the roster's set, I'm tuning out to like have my personal life or whatever. And then I'm trying to get good rest so that I could do it all again the next day.
You mentioned briefly right before we went live, like, I was talking to you to Cal. So are you buddies with him? What's the deal there?
He's a phenomenal player, Yoda Cow. I'm fortunate to have him as one of the investors in the fund. A couple of my biggest opponents I'm lucky to have them as investors in my first fund, including him and Alex Baker. And I'll say about Alex, it's incredibly impressive what he's done as a business owner of Stochastic. Not just a great DFS player, but I mean, Yoda, I always thought he had one of the best projections out there. And since I quit, it seems like things really started clicking for him in terms of GPPs. So I'm not surprised that.
Is that causation or correlation since you quit?
I think it's uncorrelated.
Okay.
Maybe it made things a little easier, but no, I mean, I think he was getting better and better at GPPs, or he set himself to improve greatly at GPPs. And I mean, it's not shocking that he's like shipping every Millie Maker now.
This has been a request. People have wanted Utica to come on the show. He recently emerged. He did an AMA in the Establish the Run Discord a couple weeks ago. You want to put in I mean, you're the one that's does all these referrals. Can you get your guy to recruit him over to our show?
Yeah, I'll see what I can do. Have you guys asked?
I did. He said he would come on in the summer.
Okay. Well, there you go. He's already coming on.
I think we need a full press attack though, James. That's what I'm kind of feeling right now.
All right.
He might just be placating us,
Well, he's probably focused on playing DFS,
I meant next summer.
Yeah.
Last time, I think.
No, he's a phenomenal player.
He there's no undeniably.
Mm-hmm.
Probably number one all time. So after you, of course, James. But last time you were on
maybe.
The two.
He's got 2 years on me now. He started before me, and he has 2 years after me. So
last time you were on, besides the 80 hours a week, I think the other notable point for a lot of people was you talked a lot of trash about players. Yeah. You got any hot takes? Do we need to go down the list of the top players nowadays too? Because
you got to take me up. I don't know who's there.
Yeah, you might not even recognize some of these people. We don't really have a good list. The best thing we have is the rankings Roto Grinders. So
Yeah,
Mark
I know a
Levin's
lot of
number
people
one now.
don't even list their screen names on there. So
Some people don't. Yeah, I'll mention a couple after we. So like Mark Levin's number one now. I don't know if you knew that, but
I didn't. What a shame. It's a damn shame.
anything
Do you have
else?
any updates? Because you were calling him out for being a cheater. The stuff with the 3-man. Is there any new information you've heard about Mark Levin since then? He also ignores our advances to come on the show.
Yeah, I've had. Yeah.
I mean, he has not responded to me every time I told him to stop cheating. And I have heard that he has stopped cheating now, or that he's not multi-sitting anymore. But yeah, that's I don't know. Real must not have a high ROI if that's what he wants to do. So I would expect he's not one of the biggest winners in the game.
Yeah, it always struck me as strange. If the allegations are true,
SSRN was like the weakest player in the field, and that's the guy he decided to collude with. Like, this guy literally used to run a 150-person train into GPPs, and like every night, and it was always the top like DR Daily Roto roster. Like, this guy was like the dust of dusts, like pure dust, and like he'd team up the galaxy brain of him and Mock Levin, put them together, and like maybe they can eke out a like 5% ROI against you in 3-mans, but I don't know. For a while, like, I was fine to still sit them because their collusion strategy was so bad. Like, they would still play 4 of the same guys and only have 1 that didn't overlap. But then, like, their collusion strategy got better over time, and there was like no better indication that these guys are cheating. Like, they were learning together how to collude. But anyway, no one cares. People doesn't care. No one cared. So like, it's all about the community. Like, are you going to have this guy on?
Well, I definitely want him on. Yeah,
right.
I'd like.
I don't think he'd ever do it though.
That's the energy you put out there.
What better way to do it than to talk to him about it?
Okay.
I mean,
yeah.
I would consider us a pretty balanced show. Like, when we have stuff, we've invited on guests on both sides to debate, various topics.
Yeah,
we'll have. Go ahead.
I've heard of like Davis says that his name Ceramac cheats in soccer or something, but I've heard that guy in interviews and stuff, and I don't believe it. So like, I'd like to have him on
in soccer. You cheating people out of like the $100 that is bet total? Yeah,
so like the $8 EV he makes with by playing 3-mans with his buddy from wherever in England.
Yeah.
And like, that guy gives out like free like ownership reviews and stuff like that on his Twitter. That doesn't seem like the behavior of a big cheater. He also plays golf though, so there's plenty of money in golf now. So, but and either way, like, maybe Mark Levin has a legitimate reason why, and he'd like to share it, but he doesn't. And like, what other show are you going to do it on? Really, I mean, I guess there's a couple others, but like, I don't know. I think he'd be useful to have him on here, and I'd probably do some more research into it too, which honestly I haven't. But you're right. Like, the biggest detectives are not the like local police. It's the other players.
It's the players.
We need to police like the cheaters ourselves, and then make it public.
What did you mention before the show that you were at a live final recently?
Yeah, DraftKings was very kind to send me as a former world champion. And so I went down to New Orleans, and I remember the first live final I went to, there was the guy who won, like, got on the mic blasted drunk and was like yelling about how he was going to a strip club. And like, at this live final, it was all nerdy kids with backpacks. There was no one like that. The only people like that, the only people going to the strip club there were the people playing the Rainmakers. So like, it made me think that you guys should be playing the Rainmakers.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of the TLDR on Rainmakers is it ended up at the highest stakes being almost like a pay to play stuff. Like, the whales with the big bankrolls were, the ones who were able to really, really crush it. But Brian, did it captivate your attention at all, the Rainmaker stuff?
A little bit. The process seemed too labor intensive to be on top of DFS. Mm-hmm. I did do the MMA one, a little bit because they started giving me free packs and stuff. I think for some people they made a little bit of money, but I'm not sure it was enough to matter. And PGA just came out too, actually, so maybe I'll take a look at that. But like I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it. Like this is what I was going to ask with McLovin too. So like his volume is so high right now. Like he's at 1 million points this year so far, and Yuta is in second at 700,000. Right. So it's not double, but like that means he's playing a ton, and he is. He's like in every sport and all this. It's like how do you get those lineups in? It's he must have some sort of automated process. And Rainmakers, if I could figure that out, or it's just like optimize, boo, 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 put it all in for me, and then maybe make some suggestions on cards to buy or something like that. But I don't want to go by hand and put all these lineups in and go to the optimizer or however I'm trying to win at the tournament. At what part of his process does he turn the computer off and he asks SRN what he's playing? Exactly. Like if you are cheating, how do you fit all that in?
That he finds out and he turns it back on.
Well, but like seriously,
I think his process is probably less automated than you think. But maybe as an organization, I don't know. I honestly don't know anything about what he's doing.
That would be a process if you have an organization, So like, I mean, it just seems like how could you cheat and get all that info in? Like it seems hard. Like I would be like, hey James, make sure you switch to this guy really quick. Switch to this guy really quick. 2 minutes before lock, and I got to change
volume at the 3-mans though. Like if you're sitting like 100K worth of 3-mans, just open sitting it with another guy. Or like, I'm pretty sure, I don't really remember that well, but I think like at the last minute they would sit once people started thinking they were colluding. And so like, if you're going to do that and that it's a good portion of your volume, like obviously you're going to be like, it doesn't take much to be like, all right, I'm playing top DR, you don't play the top DR, And like, it doesn't need to be like that much more sophisticated than that. But I mean, they've found a way to make it like about that sophisticated, but like,
For me, like I had to get rid of Yahoo out of my NBA just because my process is so I don't want to screw it up. You know what I mean? And like with late swap, and I don't know what he uses, but using like Sims and stuff like that, like I got to pay attention. And I don't have time to go, hey, partner, make sure you play that one because I'm playing this one, dummy. Like don't play the same one as me, or the whole game's over.
Yeah. Well, I will say that in situations where things are changing at the last minute, like you're pretty unlikely to overlap. And so like the times when you really are colluding, it's when you like things have been set and you have the last 15 minutes to kind of like figure that out.
Right. Yeah. But like it could also be at every lock, you might have to make decisions to match up your cheating lineups. I mean, yeah, you're getting in the head of the cheater who's playing at this volume is interesting of a problem. Although
I think you're overestimating how difficult it is, though, because like they probably are used to doing GPP and cash at the same time, and it doesn't take much to communicate like this is what I'm doing. Make sure you play a roster that has like 2 different people than that, Like that might take like 30 seconds to a minute longer.
You could also thinking it through, if you use the same projection source, like whether they make their own or they just agree to use
daily rotos. I don't know who they use today, but
you just always go, James, you're number 2 lineup, I'm number 1 lineup, right?
Basically,
and then just never even talk.
Or you just say don't take the number 1 because I'm
you just meet at a live final and go, you're lineup 2, I'm lineup 1 from here on out.
SRN would in the 3-mans like fade the number 1 DR roster, but like punted in 150 times in the GPP, and like he had a long history of doing the same roster in both. Like it could not have been more obvious.
Right? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, because you'd go through the dupes. Yeah, sorry, Pete, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. I mean, since you've been on the show, one of the biggest battles in DFS, James, is duping good or is duping bad? Do you have a stance on that in DFS?
I don't believe that. Come on,
it actually was.
Come on,
believe it.
It
is
actually
duping
was.
Good or is duping bad? Like, if you can have certain slates and you can have like. If you have a 5-person roster like on FanDuel, you kind of need to know how to dupe and when to dupe. But like if you're playing DraftKings where you have infinite combos, like you just never dupe, basically.
He dupes a lot too, McLovin.
Well, he probably just doesn't know what he's doing.
Then how does he still have money?
I mean, first of all, we just don't know the situation. You know, like a lot of people with how DFS was for a while, you could have people running on fumes. You could have people who are breaking even or slightly winning. You know, like, I mean, the person who's making the decision to cheat is probably not one who's like, oh, I'm like super flush.
One of the players.
Oh, go ahead.
One of the players who's not on the top 100, Ricky D. What do you think about this guy? Ricky D
just sent in a super chat. Dirty Canadian bucks from Ricky D. He says, ask him if he still thinks Aaron Rodgers shouldn't have gotten the vaccine.
Was that last time you were here? Last time you said Aaron? No.
I don't even know what that's.
I think last time you said Aaron Rodgers lost the confidence of his offensive line because he didn't get the vaccine. That's what it was.
That's a deep cut.
That's possible. I mean, has he done something to make us think otherwise?
No, but I'm just remembering the show. It was Aaron Rodgers. You like used the example of Aaron Rodgers. I wouldn't play him because he didn't get the vaccine, and like, for example, his teammates wouldn't trust him.
Yeah, I mean, you hear a lot of people say like the players love Kyrie and stuff like that, and I mean, when you have a guy who just like literally doesn't show up to the playoffs in the bubble, like you tell me like Spencer Dinwiddie like loves that guy, or like Harris LeVert like loves that guy, you know, I just don't buy it. Like, I mean, leaders are people who have followers and who make tough decisions, you know, and stand by what they do, not who like lie about it and skirt the truth and just like fuck around and like not make their best effort. So I don't know. That's what I have to say about that. Like, maybe people love Aaron Rodgers, but like, I mean, I think that if you're out there giving it your all and this guy like won't do a tiny thing, you know, or like is a pain in the ass and like not giving your team the best chances to win, like he's probably not very popular in the locker room.
I think that answers your question, Ricky D. 25 Canadian dollars. What's that get you?
That's got to be at least like $4 or $5 US. I would imagine.
Wow, thank you.
I don't know.
Well, I will say before we're too light on time, that just like, I know there are a lot of people thinking about, who are in a position like I was in, who are thinking about like what's next from DFS. Like maybe think the things that I have to say are like somewhat interesting or interested in venture. I'd love to talk to them. I'd love to talk to you. Just email me. I'm james@gutter.cc. Happy to talk about how I moved on from DFS. Love gamblers, love winning gamblers. So don't hesitate to reach out.
So why would you be willing to spend your time with all these you trust the lolz audience that it's going to self-select to be kind of a good cohort that would be interested in reaching out to you?
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I mean, I've gotten cold meetings with people just by sending them a thoughtful email, and like it kind of shines through when you have someone who is worth spending time with, I think. I hope.
Would you be interested in investing into lolz? Send us to the moon, you know?
What's the pitch?
We're raising.
We don't do pitches.
You don't pitch?
That's part of the whole thing.
We don't do media companies, so I don't think it's a fit for us. But I mean, there is an investor out there for you guys.
Brian has some tools he's building.
I do. I was thinking about that too. I could use money to get a full-time coder, but I'd probably just rather spend the money myself and get all the upside myself.
Yeah, fair.
But I mean, what if we could get our name on this Gutter CC pages? There's fund 1, fund 0, fund lolz. If we get our own column up here.
If you guys we can consider it if you guys get a compelling pitch together. Maybe we do a fun lolz.
That's against our operating procedure. No pitches allowed.
All right. Well, that really makes it a challenge.
No, I feel like we went back on that, Brian, because we used to be the show where people kind of book themselves. But Brian, you went on a booking spree.
I did.
This spring here. Yeah.
Because I would always like, I forgot I was going to ask someone. I forgot. And then like finally after 2 years, I'm like, I'm just going to ask everyone. And like one day, just get it done.
So sending you an email, checking out Gutter. I will include the link down in the show notes. Anything else you would like the people to check out or parting shots here? I mean, feel free to go after a DFS player you think is total dust. I mean, the floor is yours.
I'm just too far out of the game. I mean, I think the people who are around are probably pretty good, but
let me really quick. I think we got a few seconds here. Here's some names in the top nowadays. Let's see if you know who they are.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't pronounce it, but it's BGRESETH. So BG Reseth.
I don't know who that is.
I didn't think so. How about Sigurd 1978?
I don't know who that is.
Let's see here. How about Giant Squid? Do you remember him? Probably.
Yeah, I think he's pretty good.
Yeah, okay. Garns 222.
I don't know who that is.
He's 12, yeah. There's a lot of new names you wouldn't recognize who've made their way up here. How about
hopefully they've studied me. Hopefully
Rick 75 still up there. How about Nerdy
Brian
Tenor?
did this whole exercise just to read his own name.
How about our guy Nerdy Tenor?
I honestly don't know a lot about him.
Okay.
I mean, I know he has a podcast, but he seems pretty sharp, but I don't know a lot about him.
Yeah, he doesn't. I don't think he has, but he's been on many podcasts. But
okay.
Yeah, okay. I think those are the ones I just didn't think you would know their name. You know, Whistles Go Woo, right?
Yeah, I think he's a great player.
Oh, okay.
I met him for the first time in New Orleans, and yeah, I think he's sharp. I think it's not surprising that he's done as well as he has in NFL.
Was he throwing back adult sodas and doing his signature whistle call down there on Bourbon Street?
Yeah, he was blasted.
Yeah,
with his mom.
Really?
It's
his
stressful.
Mom was his +1?
Yep. Well, I think he brought like his whole family because he had like a bunch of seats.
Wow.
He brought
it's
like
stressful though. It's stressful being, an undercover FBI agent in the DFS world. You just got to let off some steam sometimes. Allegedly.
I don't know. He was showing me some of like how the sausage got made, and I don't think he's undercover at all.
That's what he wants you to think. James,
Brian thinks he works for the feds.
No, I just
who's
heard
he
that
busting
rumor.
here?
It's like the Mark Levin thing. We don't know if it's true.
All right.
He's a Fed plant to actually bust Mark Levin from within. He's working to get as close to Mark Levin.
I hope he is. I hope that's true. I would question if we're spending too much of the resources going after McLovin, though, because I think we kind of cracked that case.
All right, James. Brian and I are going to huddle after this. We're going to get our pitch deck together. We're going to come and see if we can get lolz under the gutter umbrella. I keep wanting to say Gutter Cat, which was like a shitty NFT profile project, the Gutter Cat gang. But you guys are the preeminent gutter as far as I am concerned. Brian, any final words on your end?
No. Thanks for coming on, James. That was fun.
Totally excited to see the pitch.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Audio will be up on the podcast feed. Brian, are you going to have a MMA ownership for this weekend? It's supposed to be a pretty good card, right?
Yeah. Jones is back. John Jones is back. Should be fun.
There you go.
Projections, ownership, free on my site.
Brick75.com. We are here every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. We do have our guest for next week. That one is Captain Jack, correct?
Captain Jack. Yeah, I screwed up last week. It said he was this week. James is this week. Captain Jack next week. Should be good.
Yep, Captain Jack from Unabated, prolific sports bettor, does lots of great content. So excited to talk to him next week. So for James, for Gutter, for Brian, for McLovin, I'm Pete. We'll see you guys next time.